It's something.
Yeah. So this fic has Jane, Roxy, and narrator. Is that correct, or are there other voices in this chapter?
Jane, Roxy, narrator, dad.
And Dad. Okay.
Oh, chill.
I guess I would say Bucky, you narrate it unless you don't want to do that, since that's kind of become the tradition.
I can do that. I have a tone that I'm going to give to Jane.
Excellent.
Oh,
Cool.
I'm
I'll
already. I'm
do.
bored now.
Do you want to do narrate? It's Jane's point of view. Okay. Or
Yeah, it's like third person limited from Jane's perspective,
okay.
and it's pretty much from Jane's perspective, and then I just happened to write it in third person this time because I was like, you know what, I always write in second person because I'm Homestuck trash. I should try to push my skills
I
here.
I've only written like one second person,
This
and it
game's
was the
so
Dork
slow.
Dungeons shitpost fan adventure.
I really like writing in the second person. Like it's very appealing to me for some reason, so I
Yeah,
usually go for it.
that's legit. Do you also want to voice Jane, or do you want to
I'm
pass
working
that
on
off
it.
to someone else?
I'll let somebody else do that since we could, like, you and Hasta could take like Roxy and Jane, and I can do Dad's voice, I guess.
Okay, cool. I'll do Jane's voice, I guess. I'm still kind of workshopping what she sounds like. Actually,
I
hey,
mean,
Hosta, do
I
you have a?
currently definitely have a Roxy vibe right now.
Okay, cool. Then you're
Okay.
Roxy.
Huh?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Um,
Specifically because I have several things going at once, and I may or may not be drinking an energy drink.
that's fine. So tags for
Just
this.
a
This is
vile list of dad disappointments.
this is a this is a teen and up fic. No archive warnings. I am Jane Crocker and Roxy. Jane and Dirk Strider. That's the. What is the difference between the ampersand and the slash?
Leaning towards like the and means they're like friends or it's platonic,
Right,
and I'm
that's what
like
I
leaning
thought.
towards like maybe pale. I'm thinking about it. They are
Okay,
friends
cool.
though.
They're friends. Awesome. We got Jane, Roxy, Dad Crocker, Betty Crocker,
Woo!
Dirk, and Jake English. Slow burn AU. AU no suburb session. It's a high
That's
school
truly the
AU.
Betty Crocker brand for me.
We have trans female character, trans female Roxy. I clown on the Mortal Instruments series a bit. Awesome. Uh, that is what the reference. Also, this is going to be about Jane's fandom experience as well as the whole being into women thing. Awesome.
Yeah, let's see. I think I added the
Oh, yes, you
also if
did
you
add
refresh it, I
tags.
added a
Yes.
couple of tags since then, but
And we
the
have, yes, past child abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, and it won't be on screen too much, but it'll be coming soon. Okay, cool.
there's like some passing reference to it in this chapter, more just like I don't know. I pepper in my projection onto Jane. Some of this is
That's
not my life. Some of it is. I'm not going to tell you which bits.
Yeah, that's like
As
reading my writing,
Fair.
except in my
yeah,
case, it's most of the bits.
yeah, it's like reading Stone Butch Blues, but like because Leslie Feinberg's like some of this was in my life, some of it wasn't. Good luck.
Right. So this is Never a Frown by
To be fair,
Arachnid's
yeah.
TARDIS. Summary: Jane Crocker is almost at the end of her senior year of high school. It's January. She has all her college applications in, and she just has to ride out the rest of the year to get out of her small town and onto whatever greater thing she knows she's destined for on the horizon. More importantly, she's the rest of the school year and a summer away from spending time with her best friend, Roxy Lalonde. Tune in for bullshit high school shenanigans, fandom experiences in YA literature, Jane gender, filling the void in Homestuck where Andrew Hussey forgot to put the mother issues, and realizing maybe you're in love with your best friend. Notes, so I cranked this out in like an hour and a half using a sprint bot in a Discord server to see how it worked for me, and it ended up working pretty well. Expect updates whenever I feel like doing that, I guess.
You know, which was again today because I wrote this yesterday.
That sprint bot is fucking magic.
Also, for reference, the name of this fic comes from this song "Golden Brown" by the Stranglers, which was on the Umbrella Academy
Oh,
season 2
yeah.
soundtrack.
Yeah, that's right. I like that song.
I do too. It's been running through my head for like the past week, so
That
that's why it's the name of this fic.
it's in my head now. All right. Chapter 1, take it away, Bucky.
Jane Crocker sat in her bedroom looking at her Crocker Tech TM phone, trying to figure out when her package with the book she had ordered was going to arrive. It was a blustery New England winter's morning in January, and she was hoping to get the novel before the snow arrived, and they hopefully had a few days off. The polar vortex, or so the weathermen were naming it, was set to bring cold, wet air from the Great Lakes across New York, down into Massachusetts, and finally into her area of Connecticut. Roxy and her mother had already begun to secure food and firewood and were readying to weather the storm inside, possibly without power. She wasn't sure how her own family was going to fare. Her father seemed prepared enough and had stocked up on canned goods such as soup. Their heat and stove were gas-powered, not connected to the electricity, so cooking food wouldn't be an issue. Jane was prepared to make some homemade bread in her Dutch oven or some recipes that didn't rely on refrigerated materials to get them through a power outage as well. However, what stood to be a tipping point was that Jane's grandmother was visiting this week for the first time since Jane had left Washington State, and it was beginning to look as though she'd be stuck in the house while Jane and her father were snowed in. Rather, Jane, her father, and her grandmother would all be snowed in together. Jane had to phrase it like that to make sure she faced it head-on. She would be spending possibly more than 5 days in the same house as her grandmother, uninterrupted. Jane really didn't want to face that head-on right now, though. She looked back down at her phone. The web page on her phone had loaded, and she scrolled down. The USPS tracking info displayed that the package with her book was out for delivery, but the flappy dealio on her mailbox wasn't up the last she checked. She had just sat down from looking out the window. It was too early to jump back up and look again. She kicked her legs a little. She was again torn away from her train of thought as a notification dropped down from the top of her screen. A Betty Bother chat for Roxy. 2 more followed in quick succession.
Here we go. Let's see if we can do this right. Hey, baby. Roxy in a while. Hey, baby. Just wanted to check in to see if you'd gotten the book yet. That. Not nothing. I want to lie. Say hello. This is my brother. His name is David. You're gonna get to hear me low-key dying while trying to read this fic. Be prepared, okay?
I was just gonna come in and say that I could go play on the Xbox.
Okie dokie. I'm just.
And I was also gonna say, don't eat all the fucking candy.
I bought that with my own.
I have a child only 1 year younger than David who has also discovered the F word.
Remember that.
Oh dear.
It is both somewhat hilarious and also really annoying.
I made sure that the candy I bought was within the money that
I presume that it's just delightful and entertaining all the time.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Also,
Don't blow out the candle,
make sure the candle is not burned to wood.
David. It's half a foot away
That does
from
seem
the
like a
wood.
reasonable request,
It
I'm not gonna lie.
Does seem like a reasonable request.
Outside.
Please, dear sibling, do not light the house that I also live in on fire. Signed, your brother.
Counterpoint. Do light the house on fire.
Arson, arson, arson. Willow Homestuck does not endorse arson. Please do not light your house on fire. God damn it.
No matter how much you want us to know about your baby's genitals, please do not start any fires.
Please don't start a 7,000-acre fire in California because you want to announce what your baby's gender is, or what you believe your baby's gender is going to be to the world.
Arson!
I'm so glad I said that. I'm so glad I said that.
I know.
That was a good decision
That
on my
was
part.
a great decision.
Great decision. Okay, 2.
Okay,
What?
your line is not that I think you're a thought. LMAO, I love you.
Yes, I know. I have one. I'm drinking another. It's not your.
Line.
None of you represent how many I agree. That is uncalled for. It's rude. Get out of the shed and go play your Xbox.
did you hear me open this package of cookies?
Hey, yes, I did.
Cookies
Hey,
for Tate?
Do you think that Tate gets cookies? Because there are only 2 cookies left in this package.
Tate gets cookies.
the record, but I'm telling you to put away.
Tate, here, Tate, would you like Anne Cherry? I
Ooh.
will bite the pit out of the cherry for you, the dog.
No! No! If you're gonna keep flipping me off, go!
Just one half.
I'm gonna chill out here. Stop! Hey, I will get out. Brother, do not!
And
Do
here's
not
the
think
other
I will
half.
not kick you in the crotch.
No, wait, I can use my own. Tate Champ! You could use Tate Champ!
Yeah. The Belmonts and I were going ham with that the other day, so it definitely works.
I remember that now.
Sorry about the technical. Shut up! Bye! Bye!
I redeemed one of my own rewards and gave
Nice.
Tate a treat.
Nice. You got to do things by the book. That's important.
Difficulties?
Mhm.
Sorry about the small technical difficulties there. We are good to go.
Okay.
Cool.
Not that I think you're a thought, though. Yeah, I love you.
Jane smiled. Her best friend was really sweet. The book Roxy had in mind, and the book Jane was waiting on, was the latest in the young adult series, Mechanical Lilith, she and Roxy had been following avidly over the past few years. It was a fast-paced, magic-filled tale of a girl plunged into an other world full of monsters to hunt and supernatural weapons to wield. Oddly enough, the author had some sort of recurring, flip-flopping plot point regarding the main character's potential to be there should be an apostrophe there. The main character's potential to be siblings with her love interest that was beginning to leave a bad taste in Jane's mouth. She hoped this book ended it once and for all. Roxy was similarly opinioned, and she had taken the further step of writing a lot of fan fiction about who she would prefer the main character be matched up with. Jane wasn't quite as creative as she was, and participated in transformative work solely from the reading standpoint. Regardless, Roxy and Jane both stayed up late at night IMing about their favorite fics, and Jane had been known to sneak reading fanfiction in the back of her school lessons instead of paying attention. It didn't matter too much, or at least that's what she kept telling herself. She'd already read all the material ahead at home when she was taking her notes, unlike most of her other unprepared classmates, and had the material and vocabulary already sorted into color-coded notes and flashcards. Her study blog was pretty popular. It was fine if she didn't pay attention during class all the time. She wasn't missing anything. Her and Roxy's favorite pairing at the moment was between Chrissy, the main character, and the accomplished assassin Marley, if Roxy was writing, who had been Chrissy's biggest rival during training and who competed with her constantly. Chrissy had the protagonist's power of always overcoming her challenges with almost superhuman ease in the novels. This usually left Marlene fuming and vengeful. In the sort of fiction that a dedicated community of Mechanical Lilith series fans had carved out, there was a lot of femme-slash that fans could enjoy without being subject to the boring heterosexual tropes of the main series. That's what the mods of the Marcy boards on Lime Diary and other related communities centered on the blogging platform Plumbler seemed to unilaterally agree on, at least. Jane was happy to read whatever Roxy forwarded her, but couldn't help but indulge in some of the het pairings on sample. Not the pairing between Chrissy and Denson that the novel would have you be led to. No, Jane was a little more interested in the rare pairing between 2 minor characters that she and a small community of other fans read and contributed to. She had been brave enough to write a few short fills in a recent Big Bang event for that team's pairing, but she couldn't bring herself to use her main account to post the short fics or tell Roxy she participated. All in all, 3.5 years since she had left Washington State, Jane Crocker did not need her grandmother Elizabeth butting her head back into her business for almost a week. It had been bad enough living with her during middle school when her father moved to New England to look for a job in a house. Grandmother Elizabeth, or just Granny, dear, as she had told Jane many times previously, had a very solid idea of how little girls should behave. Jane was to spend her time after school doing her homework, preparing dinner with her grandmother, then doing some sort of enriching activity after eating until bedtime. This usually consisted of sewing, knitting, quilting, or some other creative activity along with her grandmother while they watched her true crime television shows. Weekends passed much the same, but television still was not permitted until after 6 o'clock in the evening, so Jane spent her mornings and afternoons reading the dusty old books in her grandmother's library until evening rolled around and she could indulge in gory mystery. By the time the 3rd year of middle school had rolled around, I use that phrase like twice, don't I? Damn it. Jane had convinced her guardian to add the crime scene investigation shows and Bones to her rotation, but the melodrama and lack of taste in storytelling still persisted. At least the stories in the later years were more interesting. Jane had long since left the period of her life where she was willing to put up with that sort of highfalutin nonsense, excuse her language. She was not going to sit around her whole life sewing and crafting and cooking and otherwise being prepared to be the best little housewife ever. She was an accomplished and intentional woman who was going to go to college, work, and be the breadwinner, like her father. She wasn't content just being the mantelpiece doll of some man who she'd see for a few hours a week when he wasn't working. Her grandmother Crocker was the same woman who founded the company Jane was supposedly set to inherit, but she had long since turned over control of the company to a board who managed its global footprint. She had no intention of getting her manicured hands too dirty. Instead, she luxuriated in the money she made and attempted to get her granddaughter to head towards the same lifestyle. Jane had only started taking the title of heiress seriously at the age of 15. Before that, she hadn't even considered that she would do anything else besides be the sort of girl her grandmother wanted her to be. Her father had departed when she was 11, and for a while she wasn't sure if her new guardian would allow her to leave across the country. She still wasn't even sure she would be able to participate in the inner workings and high-up goings-on of her family business because of her grandmother's stance on doing actual work at her age and her net worth. Eventually, her father found an old house, and she was released and went to live in a similarly small Eventually, her father found a small old house, and she was released and went to live in a similarly small town. She was suddenly much, much closer to Roxy, and the next year met her at an anime convention. They spent 2 glorious days together in homemade cosplay, traipsing around the artist alley and food court together, laughing and stuffing their faces with bad food. Jane's father seemed to approve of Roxy, too, and let her stay over once or twice when Roxy's mom let her ride the train down from upstate New York. There were still photo booth strips from that convention pinned up on the bulletin board over Jane's desk. Jane was shaken from her reminiscing by a knock on her bedroom door.
Come in,
She said, brightly. Her father opened the door, holding a brown cardboard package in his hand. Were you waiting on a package? Jane stood up.
Oh, yes. I was expecting it to be delivered to the mailbox. I'm so glad it got here before that dreadful storm that's approaching.
With a smile, Jane's dad handed her the folded cardboard package and produced the kitchen scissors to cut it open with. The delivery person put it directly on our front stoop. I'm glad you didn't miss it. She took both items proffered, sitting back down on the bed to carefully open her prize.
It's the next book in that series Roxy and I have been reading. I forget what this book is titled, though. Let's see.
Jane took the hardcover book out of its cradle, setting the cardboard aside on the bed, and read the cover.
The Mechanical Lilith, Book 7, Angels and Falling Spires.
Dad shook his head. That sounds rather intense,
I'm sure it will be.
Jane said emphatically, now looking at the inside cover flap.
The ending of the last novel had a cliffhanger in which the protagonist...
Sissy, right?
Chrissy, but close, Dad. Chrissy was left at the edge of a massive gaping hole where the only remaining portal back to the surface world had stood but moments before. Roxy and I have been waiting to see what happens next for 1.5 years now. I have to tell her so we can both start reading.
Jane grabbed at her phone again and prepared to tell her friend the news. I also came up here to let you know your grandmother is going to get here by dinner time, so get ready to eat with her this evening. Jane was silent for a moment. She didn't want to tell her father she wasn't excited. She hadn't said much at all about how she felt about his mother to his face since she started to realize she was very uncomfortable with a lot of what she had been spoon-fed while she was there. She eventually settled on,
That's great to hear.
and a beaming smile. Her dad smiled, too. Was it less assuredly than usual? Jane wasn't sure. I'll let you know when she's here. Don't get too lost in that book now. He winked to let Jane know he was kidding, and shut the door. Jane retrieved her phone from where she had dropped it in her excitement and shuffled back into the pillows at the head of her bed to type out a message to Roxy.
Good morning, Roxy. I'm doing well. How about yourself? I did, in fact, get my copy of Angels and Falling Spires in the mail this morning. My father just delivered it to me. How about you? Did you get yours in the mail? How is the snow up there? Yours, Jane.
She hit send on the message and smirked. Jane didn't mean...
Person writes an email.
Jane didn't mean to be a pest, but she did like poking fun at her best friend's incredibly informal typing style. She let her phone drop to her chest to wait for a reply, and stared up at the ceiling for a moment. It was Monday, the 6th of January, 2014. Jane was 17 years old, 4 months away from her 18th birthday. She'd already sent all of her college applications in as of December, and was waiting results to see where she would be going in less than half a year when she graduated high school. She was so close to leaving her less than idyllic childhood behind and finally getting to see what was really out there, what she really could accomplish on her own 2 feet without being beholden to whatever her guardians expected of her. Just under 6 months, and she would be finished with the crushing drudgery of high school and onto some real education. Something that almost assuredly would be like a great adventure, and not at all more of the same. God, she hoped it wouldn't be just more of the same. Her study blog on Plumbler was gorgeous, yes, but she wanted some fresh, new ideas, something she could actually dig her teeth into, and not the same dusty old novels or same retreading of boring American history. It was so easy to make your notes pretty when there was almost nothing to think about while you were working on them, not even their contents. Her phone buzzed on her chest. Jane picked it up and unlocked it, looking at the new notification.
Hell yeah, Jamie! Let's get to some reading.
Attached was an image of Roxy, holding her copy of the book next to her winking face, her tongue sticking out from between her black painted lips. Her eyeliner was heavy and black as well, outlining her pink contact eyes and thick, dark eyebrows. Her hair was hidden under a pink baseball cap with a white cat embroidered on the front, and Jane could see the top of Roxy's favorite black sweatshirt. Jane smiled and held her own copy up next to her face to take an image as well. The camera opened up, and she looked at her face in the preview image, and her smile faded. She put the book on her lap instead, switched the camera around, and took a picture of it on her legs, sending it over to Roxy with the message,
Ready when you are.
She set her phone down and reached for the book, flipping the front cover open and cracking the spine. Jane had been going to wait until the snow started falling, but Roxy was horrible about spoilers.
Nice. That's good.
Thanks.
I really like that.
You want to stop everything you hear about it.
I want to go I think we're gonna go back and edit it and cut some of the exposition from the beginning because it's a little preemptive, and I think I can more naturally work it in.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna just keep writing a lot of this, and then after I've written a several chunky good chapters, I'm gonna go back and rework some stuff to make sure it fits chronologically. Because in the chapter I wrote today, I definitely said that the book she was reading was the 6th book. So I need to.
Oh yeah.
I said that this chapter was the 7th.
When I was reading the Blood Will Wash Out, I noticed that I'd incorrectly blood colored the doctor in the first description because he's a gold blood, not an olive blood. So it's like, oop, I'm gonna fix that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things to edit here, but I'll do that later.
It kind of looks